Hi, I'm Dave Harris at Thought Clearing, and I want to talk about the problem of dissertation work starting to feel meaningless. I talked about this in my last two videos. In the last video, I talked about what I called the ivory tower problem, which is where the research itself starts to feel out of touch with the real world, so esoteric or specific that it's really nobody understands it, it's not meaningful to anybody. In this video, I want to talk about a different kind of meaninglessness that can strike a dissertation writer, which is when what I call the rite of passage problem or the hazing ritual problem, which is when the tasks themselves don't feel like they're meaningful to research and perhaps are only given you to make you suffer. If you start to feel like you're involved in a meaningless task that's only given you to suffer, it can be emotionally distressing, can really interfere with your motivation and ability to work. So we want to dispel this thinking. Let's start with the big issue. The dissertation itself is not just a rite of passage. Many people talk about it as such. I've seen it in a number of dissertation books that talk about it that way. It's not just a rite of passage. It's a learning experience. And specifically, it's supposed to be a learning experience to help you learn to be an independent researcher. And to be an independent researcher, to have the experience of being an independent researcher, you have to do some work without guidance. And because you have to do some work without guidance, there's potential to get hung up. But that doesn't make the project meaningless. And the fact that you can get lost doesn't make the project meaningless. The fact that so many people do get lost doesn't make the project meaningless. It makes it unfortunate that there's not a better way of doing it. In the laboratory sciences, there's not nearly the problem of students ending up without a dissertation, partly because of the structure. Students go into a laboratory where they work with a professor and other students, and first they're the seventh author of some project that's completed by one of the most advanced students in the laboratory or the professor. Then they're the sixth author or the fifth author. By the time they're ready to be the first author of their own paper or their own dissertation, they have been involved in the creation and completion of several different research projects. So they have a good sense of the practicalities that the independent researcher needs. For students in the social sciences and the humanities, where students get hung up ABD without having done the dissertation, there is no such viable model, or such viable models are rare. You don't work with a professor in a laboratory. You generally work independently, very independently, doing different kinds of research. And your professor's projects are usually so long in their life that you don't get to see them from start to finish, or you don't get a good view of the mechanics of it from start to finish. But the dissertation project is not meaningless. It's a learning experience. And it's meant to challenge you to make your own decisions as an independent researcher. So it is not inherently meaningless, but you can wander lost. So there are a couple of other aspects that can start to feel meaningless, right? Even if you feel like the dissertation as a whole is meaningful, you can feel like your professor gives you meaningless tasks, or one of your gives you meaningless tasks, that maybe you have a sadistic professor. And you can also feel like some of the bureaucratic and administrative and conventional expectations are no more than drudgery that really doesn't help. And I want to take the second first. Conventions and a lot of the drudgery involved in a dissertation are there to help you participate in the community and there to help you participate in the institutions of research. You're not all alone as a researcher. You're engaging in a community discourse, not just with your professors and your fellow students, but with people at conferences and with the authors and readers of journals that you read and to which you might submit. So a lot of the drudgery and conventionalities are to help you fit in. Style conventions help readers read more efficiently. If you know where citation styles are, you can read citations more quickly. So don't think about the bureaucracy as meaningless drudgery, but think about how it greases the wheels of the larger community. Professors. professors who give you work just to make you suffer. Some people feel like their work is meaningless because they're just being tortured. I had a friend who talked about a professor who reputedly liked to cause students just as much pain as she herself had suffered when doing her dissertation only a few years earlier. I don't think that professors are going to try and cause students pain, mostly. There may be malicious professors, there may be sadists. I think more professors are likely to cause pain because they don't really pay enough attention to students. But I think that any sort of negative view of your professor is only useful if it guides you to change professors, or it guides you to manage the situation so that you can get out of it with your degree as quickly as possible. Sometimes you will be asked to do something by a professor that may feel meaningless. Don't assume that it's there to make you suffer. Don't assume that it's a bad idea. Look at what they're asking you to do. See if you can find meaning in it. See if you can understand why they want you to do it. And if you can't find meaning in it, don't do it. Or develop an argument for why it's inappropriate to do it. And then present that to your professor and see what they have to say. And if they say, hey, you know what? You're right. You don't have to do it. And suddenly you're not being given a meaningless task. What in fact you discovered is that your professor gave you bad feedback. And that may happen. Don't hold it against your professor. Look for the good that they have to offer you so that you can get out of your program as quickly as possible. Lots of professors have lots good to offer, and they may make mistakes too. Okay, so your professors may give you tasks that you feel are meaningless. Look for the meaning in those tasks and advocate for yourself if you don't want to do those tasks. Don't just do meaningless work. If in the end it turns out that your professor does want you to do something, can't convince you that it's meaningful, and you're sure that it's meaningless, maybe you still need to do it, and maybe you need just to grin and bear it. But if you approach each little thing that feels meaningless and ask yourself, how does this help? How does this help the community? How does this help me learn to be an independent researcher? How does this help my professor understand my project? Find meaning where you can, and the work won't feel as if it's just a rite of passage, as if it's just a hazing ritual to make you suffer. Don't think about your work as if it were just to make you suffer. It will make you suffer just thinking that way, ironically. So look for the positives in your dissertation project. Remember what a great opportunity it is to be in graduate school, to be seeking an advanced degree, to be able to pursue the doors that an advanced degree will open, and get to that work. It's not meaningless. If you're feeling like your dissertation is meaningless, I might be able to help. I'm Dave Harris. You can contact me, dave@thoughtclearing.com. I would love to talk with you about your work. Thanks for watching my video.